Hi, hello, welcome to Spell Day. We're covering spell every single day of the year from the 5e PHP plus 3. Those special spells are homebrew spells. We're at plus 2 at the moment. You can get back to playlist to find them. And today's spell is Reincarnate.
Do you know what all of this ultimately means? They're at the perfect spot between smart and stupid. They're smart enough to find meaning in life from all sorts of things, but they're dumb enough to not care or even understand that their world is the shithole to end all shitholes. Ogres are the best race possible to be.
5th level transmutation, casting time of 1 hour, range of touch, components for both somatic material, rare oils, and unguents worth at least 1,000 gold pieces, which the spell consumes. Duration instantaneous. You touch a dead humanoid or a piece of a dead humanoid, provided that the creature has been dead no longer than 10 days. The spell forms a new adult body for it and then calls the soul to enter the body. The target's soul isn't free or willing to do so, the spell fails. The magic fashions a new body for the creature to inhabit, which likely causes the creature's race to change. The DM rolls a d100 and consults the following table to determine what form the creature takes when restored to life, or the DM chooses a form. It'll probably be displayed somewhere. The reincarnated creature recalls its former life and experiences. It retains the capabilities it had in its original form, except it exchanges its original race for the new one and changes its racial traits accordingly. I mean, it's a different flavored Raised Dead with some extra stats tied to it. So, it runs into the same issues of willing and capable, which, I mean, head to the Raised Dead video if you're curious about that. But it's actually more expensive than Raised Dead, which this one has... You might not always want to change the race. You probably don't want to change the race. In the past, this was because only certain classes could have access to this, and this was the alternative to Raised Dead for this class. But it's the same spell slot, but twice as expensive, and then changes the race of the character. The fact that it's either random or the DM picks, not the player picking... I mean, it's definitely worse than Raised Dead, that's for sure. Worse than just, it does the same thing Raised Dead does, but with that, well, okay, actually, now that I think about it, Reincarnate does not have the undead tag, as in it can't be used on undead that Raised Dead had. Also, it doesn't have the minus bonus, or not the bonus, but the minus you get after being resurrected from Raised Dead, which every long rest goes down by 1, again, that video. No, instead, the only negative is the body. So it's not... Also, this one can only target humanoid creatures. Raised Dead could target other creatures. Would undead outrule that? No, it would be... Maybe. Also, what's nice is you don't need to have the body in any particular condition, so okay. That's a benefit over Raised Dead, because with Raised Dead, you need the whole body. Yes, it could have some mortal wounds, but you definitely need the head, and if it's eviscerated, you're not going to get anything. Whereas with Reincarnate, you could just have the hand, a finger, a clump of hair and scalp, maybe? But 1,000 gold pieces. 1,000 gold pieces for the material components, which the spell consumes. Like the diamond, it's twice as much. And then it's up to the... Okay. When it comes to the actual changing of the race. Oh man. Setting-wise, has a lot of factors. One, because the base book doesn't even... It only has the races from the original player's handbook. So any other expansion races... Whoops. Just not on the random table, so you have to go and look up a custom one, or make your own, or you have to go and find whatever you can on it. Okay, when I say find whatever you can, is because some settings might function differently on what can be a certain thing, or how certain souls work, and it's a similar thing with Raised Dead, where the question was just the soul, and like the afterlife and that transition and how that worked, whether magic or gods or certain entities came and meddled with it. When it comes to this, how different are the races in the setting? Like, are they different just physically? Are they also different, like, to the point of the soul? Like in Lord of the Rings, where the dwarves literally just are built different. Man, god damn it. I didn't mean for that. But in a sense, they actually think different. They are entirely programmed differently on how they interpret the world and function. And they were made differently from humans as well. That has some more implications than just a physicality swap. Because I know in my setting it is like that, so some of these races on the base list would be off, and then, yeah. So basically it's like, okay, you'd have to pick some of that. The DM choosing one, however, we're now going to touch on some of the various story implications that can come from this, and world building slightly. When it comes to DM chooses, you could have some kind of internal system that's just in the setting or baked into your campaign on how Reincarnate works, and just have it that, yeah, Players can choose, or the people casting this can choose, or it can be forced upon a creature. Though actually it says willing or able, so not that. I mean, there's probably easier ways through transmutation of some kind, but this is a path to do it. I mean, this is also transmutation now that I'm looking at it. But you mind to have some pact or agreement that like a turncoat or traitor to another group is like ritualistically killed and then reincarnated as that group. You could have traitors of a dwarf to elven kind and they became an elf later on. Is that a weird and specific thing? Yes. But the spell allows for that kind of game, or that kind of thing to exist. That's a weird particular thing, and that's if you can technically choose what they become. Which, I mean, hey, comes down to the DM's choice literally in the spell as well. Especially since the table doesn't cover anything outside of just the base player's handbook, you kinda need the DM's choice to step in anyway. If it's anything more than that, that is. But when it comes to the DM's choice, and how you can use it, well, the example of that world building to a situation where you could just decide that, yeah, you can pick it, or it's based upon the caster casting it. Like, some people bring in the interpretation of create food and water, that when you create Reincarnate, maybe it is just the race of the caster. You're a lizard folk casting this on a dead human, it's gonna be a lizard folk. That's a maybe, you might run it that way, it might be that you can choose whatever it is, or it has to have some specific component based off of it, like, oh, you actually do need to mix it with the dead body of an elf mixed with some of the dead body parts of the person you're reviving to make them an elf. Or maybe it's a half-elf because it's butchered and it's human mixing with elf. Maybe that's another way of getting half-races. And then campaign and storytelling-wise, man, especially if a character wasn't asking for this, or this is your only way of resurrection, that can be a big story moment. Depending on what they become, and hey, you get to choose. That could be a big part of a character. Maybe you have a character that started out that way. That, yeah, they were an ancient adventurer, died, resurrected, and in this new campaign, they're playing as a goblin, and that's their backstory. This allows for Freaky Friday scenarios, but not with an individual person, but a body type, and you can't go back. So maybe not Freaky Friday. But also then it changes physical stats, which is kind of nice. Well, physical stats in the sense of the actual racial bonuses you get, that it switches to whatever the race you became, which, with the new heritage system and a lot of the modern books and expansions and what, I don't know, one D&D is bringing up, it's kind of a moot point, kind of, at least for the stats. But it's still something entertaining and something to take in mind on like, oh, you get to reshuffle those when you head down through Reincarnate. And then if you're running with the base races and stats, then yeah, you just get those in exchange. You have to subtract what you had originally from your race bonuses, and then the new ones. But I mean, when it comes to the actual just resurrection, it's got some quirks compared to Raised Dead. But I'd say usually just not worth it, because it could cause more problems, potentially. Yeah, -1 is more immediately felt, but depending on the setting and game, it's a very setting and game dependent, which the first part of the spell with willing and able is already very setting and game dependent. That is just leaving a lot more homework in the DM's hands. I know this has left me homework. 5 out of 10. Because there's just other resurrection spells. And the other resurrections, like, it's just so much more expensive. Comparing it to Raised Dead, it's just so much more expensive. It adds an additional weird feature. It's just not always, 4 out of 10, 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. I think it's cool. It's a neat concept. I think if its gold cost was like even lower than Raised Dead, I think it'd be used a lot more often, and I think it should have been lower. Because Raised Dead gives a flat negative bonus, where this one's possible negatives as your entire race changes. That's a lot of character implications, and if those implications had come at the cost of cheap reviving, or we couldn't get the body in time, those are interesting character moments. But with the gold cost price, you're just always going to try and find a way to get other kind of resurrection, or revivify, or raise dead. We'll knock it back up to 5 out of 10. This allows for restatting a character. Like, again, cool opportunities, cool character moments, cool campaign moments, and potentially cool world building. That one spell brings up a lot of questions, and a lot of fun ones. Just the gold cost and the level, well, level I kind of agree with, but the gold cost hurts it. Yep, there you go.